Pornified homes. Victoria amazonica is one of the most primitive extant flowers on Earth. It is one of the first flowering species to branch from the stream of evolution. Its large floating system of leaves occupies space on the surface of Amazonian water bodies while keeping competitors away, so that its grounded roots can expand onto a large portion of undisputed soil. Due to the lack of light and movement, the bottom of Amazonian rivers and lakes accumulate CO2, making it difficult for life. It is its thorny stacks of Victoria amazonica that connect its floating parts, the ones exposed to the underwater world, to its grounded ones, bringing the oxygen needed to keep alive its roots system. Many botanists consider Victoria amazonica's reproduction a baroque and primitive oddity, but it has allowed it to expand over a great territory, which encompasses French Guiana, Bolivia, or Brazil, and expands into enclosed environments in Brooklyn, Helsinki, Oslo, or Miami. Victoria amazonica changes gender over a 24-hour period of pollination. The flower only lives 2 days. When it blossoms, it is white and broadcasts an intense fragrance. It works as a multi-sensory billboard that glows in the dark of the chilling rainforest and attracts Cyclocephala castanea beetles that have often traveled for more than 200 kilometers away via the wind. They bring with them the pollen of distant Victoria flowers where they happen to have spent their previous night. The warm and comfortable environment of the chamber attracts as many as 20 3-centimeter long beetles convened in the distance to spend the night together. Once they enter the chamber, the flower closes due to the drop in temperature at night. In such a crowded and comfortable interior, beetles find unfamiliar partners to copulate with. Instigated by this trans-species architecture of sex, the beetle's movement frees the pollen they carry, and the flower gets pollinized by a genetically diverse and distant specimen of Victoria amazonica. With the sunrise, the flower changes gender and turns pink. The flowers remain closed for another few hours, but now the stigma, loaded with pollen, warms, and this attracts the beetles to the upper part of the flower. Only when the beetles are covered with pollen does the flower open, freeing them to the windy morning that will take them to new and distant locations, where the genes of their host will find new exotic chambers of glow and unfamiliar sex. November 1849 was the first time Victoria amazonica blossomed in the UK. Joseph Paxton, chief gardener at the Duke of Devonshire's estate, Chatsworth, designed a heated glass house so that his employer could succeed in a scientific competition by offering Queen Victoria the first Victoria amazonica to blossom in the country. 40,000 Londoners saw the image of Anna, Joseph Paxton's daughter, at the lily house on a gigantic leaf of the blossom Victoria amazonica when it was published in the Illustrated London News. The extant water lily house in Kew Gardens was built as an iteration of Paxton's invention in 1852. The modular manufacturing made it possible for the iron-made sexualizing devices to be introduced in upper-middle-class residential architecture. One of the main architectural endeavors of the 19th century was to engineer glass houses to introduce the sexualized specimens of remote colonial territories into British homes. The keyword Brazilian is the #1 search on sleepyboy.com, Europe's most popular male escort website. It was launched in February 2000 as the personal site of British escort Marcus Denton. It was not until 2003 that the site became a space where different male sex workers could be listed. With 686,565 consolidated users who spend an average of 11 minutes on the site, sleepyboy.com increases its company value at a rate of 18% every 3 months. Denton runs a holding of successful gay sites, gayscenecams.com, sleepyboyscam.com, menforrentnow.com, and domains such as boyorchard.com, nakedstraightlads.com, gayreview.com, shemaleescortcams.com, nakedstraightlads.com, and silverboys.com. From those sites, he drives the flow of internet users to his lifestyle site, where he can be seen driving fancy cars or vacationing with trendy young lovers. Over 10 years, sleepyboy.com has moved from Denton's personal escort page to becoming a platform that not only collectively commodifies sex, but also accommodates in London an urbanism to articulate self-branding with aspirational consumption. Raphael thinks it is hot blood that his clients expect when hiring an escort tagged as Brazilian on sleepyboy.com. They believe Brazilians are fully sexualized. Raphael says, "My clients think Brazilians only think and talk sex." When asked why his profile in sleepyboy.com is one of the most seen, he gives 2 reasons. First, he looks young and innocent, and that sells. Raphael is not actually his real name. Giving himself an archangel's name is part of a self-branding strategy. Second, he thinks that everyone fancies sexy, wealthy people. He wears jeans and Armani polos, as he thinks rich guys do, but he wears them very snug to make them sexy. On his cell phone, he carries a picture of his dad, mom, siblings, and the son he had when he was a teenager. He constantly chats with them through WhatsApp. Although he loves them, he did not want to get stuck in the life he had in Brazil. 2 years ago, when he turned 19, he left the central Brazil town where he had spent his entire life. His parents were too strict and strongly religious. At 13, he began to work as a real estate broker, construction worker, and cell phone seller. Working 13 hours a day, he would make 1,000 reais a month, of which 700 went towards rent. He could not afford to party even once a month. Inspired by Tachizaki, he asked a friend the day he was leaving Brazil to tattoo him a British imperial state crown, as it was redesigned for Queen Victoria in 1838 on his right chest. To celebrate his first year in London, he added to the crown Julius Caesar's, quote, "Veni Vidi Vici," written in Edwardian calligraphy. He sublets a 50-square-meter apartment in a basement in Chelsea. It is here where he often meets his clients. He has not bought a single piece of furniture for the apartment, but he did buy a flat-screen TV and a sound system. When he is not working, he spends time with his girlfriend watching Mo Vlog's YouTube channel, Rich Boy in the Middle East. With 1.4 million followers, it shows the daily life of a young Dubai man and his girlfriend who play around in Lamborghinis and shop for expensive clothes in endless air-conditioned malls. When Raphael first arrived in London, he lived in a big apartment shared with many escorts. His business requires that he be connected, but not too connected, to his competitors. He believes the way to emancipate himself from Brazil's working-class economy is to surround himself with rich people. For him, real estate is the real politics of emancipation. He will soon be eligible to rent a big apartment so that he can quit escorting and instead sublet rooms to young Brazilian escorts. Bruno's profile on sleepyboy.com presents him as a Brazilian man available for paid sexual encounters in his apartment. He grew up with his mom and siblings in a favela in Rocinha. When he was a kid, his mom called him Bam Bam, after the Flintstones' sweet and strong kid character. At 14, he moved to Rio de Janeiro and decided to get the name Bam Bam tattooed on his forearm. In Rio, he lived on the streets for 2 years. Using the parallel bars at the street gyms and inspired by his late cousin who was muscular, he began to sculpt his body. He had his mom and siblings' faces tattooed on different parts of his body as a way of bridging the distance between himself and his loved ones. He was already a good dancer when a religious organization took him to a children's shelter where he lived for a while and learned to play guitar and drums. While dancing at the carnival, someone invited him to move to London, where he ended up marrying a British lawyer. They communicated with Google Translator until Bruno, with the lawyer's help, could speak English. This opened up many opportunities, and Bruno started dancing at the spin flow club called Heaven. 4 years later, his videos on YouTube, which involve him dancing, have millions of views, and he is regularly invited to dancing clubs in Hamburg and Ibiza. He uses one cell phone to communicate with his clients in the UK and Germany, a second one for storage and to play the music he uses for dancing, and a third used only for WhatsApp to contact his mates and relatives in Brazil. Sex clients, dancing, and loved ones in Brazil remain independent realms in the way Bruno distributes them among his 3 cell phones. About his clients, Bruno says, "In the UK and Germany, people love Brazilians. They think we rock the world in a good way, that we are beautiful and sexy. My clients want to know more about my tattoos, my life in Rio. They love to take me to their homes. It makes them think that their life is fun and sexy." Bruno lives with his dog Eros in a small apartment at the rear part of a fancy building in Kensington. He needs to live in a central and prestigious part of London. This helps clients feel comfortable. He is turning his 28 square meter apartment into what he calls a pornifying stage. 1 year ago, he added a plinth to his window. He can now jump from a platform on top of his washing machine onto a tatami and then slowly move to the end, leaning on the wall. He has already installed a sound system, and soon the lights and cameras will arrive. Bruno's society is one built to make it possible for clients in the UK and Germany to bring sexiness into their daily lives. It is a complex assemblage of demarcations that can only remain together through the mediation of independent phones, tattoos, and staged interiors, and that are reprogramming London's central and prestigious neighborhoods into networks of transnational daily life pornification. Central London, so many times narrated as the hub of the globalized, post-states-oriented government, contains an ecosystem of shady backyards and down-rated basement apartments. This is a transnational urbanism that is not built out of blocks, roads, and institutional buildings, but rather composed of the way humans, bereft of economic power, are displaced and then sexualized by the way their offline existence is pornified through online projection. Colonial creation of a geography of center and periphery might now be replaced by a layered coexistence in which the architecture of properness, the one that accommodates law firms, wealthy residences, and corporative headquarters, contains a secluded and sexualized backyard architecture of otherness. We might have never been global. We inhabit the way transnational constellations negotiate their articulation with each other. It might be in the way our skins, texts, WhatsApps, desires, loved ones, domestic interiors, unfamiliar interaction, and sound systems get together, where we can find the urbanism we now live by.